Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTCQB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide Free Alberta. Her website, pesticidefreealberta.org. Welcome back to the show, Sheryl.
Hello.
Sheryl, you're going to a convention in Saskatoon. What's going on there?
It's called Organic Connections. It's a 3-day convention. It's going to be, they're bringing in a lot of very interesting speakers. There's going to be workshops on improving and enhancing the soil for weed management. And I'm looking forward to meeting some people who I've at least spoken to but not actually met, and some who I have met before. So I'm really looking forward to this. There's going to be a lot of great ideas being expressed at this convention, so should be good.
Of course, we've been told chemicals are the only way to handle weeds. What are some of the ways you can do it organically and not have to contaminate your produce?
Well, there's a lot of things to say about that. I mean, the first thing that we should always be considering is the soil and the microbes in the soil, for example. And so the kind of microbes you have in your soil is going to impact what kind of plants are going to grow. I mean, you actually can see that in your surroundings. Certain plants grow in certain areas. So if you want to know more, there's webinars. Elaine Ingham gives webinars on that issue. I'm going to be learning a lot this weekend, so there's more also around, in permaculture they talk about mixing different plants together. If you have a monoculture of one crop over a big area, you're going to be susceptible to disease and pests just because this is not a natural system in our environment. So there's many things to say about how to address weeds and pests. Basically, you want to prevent them from occurring in the first place. When they show up, it's an indicator that something's already off balance. And so we kind of look at these issues from the wrong direction. We always think about how to get rid of something rather than asking why it's there in the first place. So certain weeds, for example, will appear in certain soil conditions, for example. And if you don't want those weeds there, then considering why the weeds there in the first place is the issue to address. So it's kind of a different way of thinking. There's also, besides, there's new ideas about how to grow plants without tilling. There are different plants that are being considered, like perennial crops, for example. Even growing different kinds of things, like hemp, for example. Hemp is a plant that grows relatively fast, so it can outcompete weeds. So when we talk about this issue, there's just, we could talk for a whole day or two about how to prevent pests and disease in the first place.
Do you think that farmers and gardeners are made aware that you have an alternative to using something that just doesn't come out of a spray can or a giant spray tank?
Well, I think a lot of people think that this is normal, that spraying pesticides is just a normal thing, but really it's not. We have a whole system of agriculture, and there's many farmers around the world that don't use pesticides. It's just the direction that we've been going. It kind of made things easy for farmers in the beginning, but now I think it's creating more problems than it's actually solving. Glyphosate does a lot of damage, for example. This is one of the main herbicides used in agriculture. It's patented as an antimicrobial. So it's going to impact soil microbes. It's also a very strong chelator. That means it holds on to minerals of calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, which are all essential minerals in plants and for us in our for our good health. So it creates problems. So it's like the mindset it's kind of like hitting the problem with a hammer when maybe a hammer is not what you need at all. I think a lot of people, once they get involved with groups like permaculture groups, they start to look at these, the way of growing things differently. It's actually easier if you learn how to grow plants this way. It's less work. It's just the huge expanses of lawns that we have everywhere are just about the most labor-intensive things we grow. And in a lot of areas, we don't need lawns. So there's a lot of things to say that we could do differently that makes things actually easier and safer and more useful.
For a healthy lawn, then, should you perhaps, instead of using one kind of grass seed, vary it, have several different kinds of grasses growing at once? Would that be a healthier lawn?
Well, if you're going to go grass, another thing that we used to do historically, besides having different kinds of grasses, because, a lawn might be in the shade, there might be some areas a little hotter and drier. So, yeah, having a variety of grasses is good. But also, we historically used to have clover seed in our grass mixes. And the reason being that clover is a nitrogen fixer. It literally enhances the growth of the grass, and that it provides nitrogen to your lawn instead of fertilizing. Once the chemical companies started to get involved in applying herbicides on lawns, then the clover seed was left out because, of course, our herbicides kill broadleaf plants, which includes clover. So when you look back at what we were doing and what we're doing now, it makes less and less sense as you go along because the herbicides do damage. They persist much longer than we think they do, and we're making more work for ourselves in the end. The thing about having a healthy lawn is just that, having a healthy lawn. So in the U.S., there's a company called Turf Logic that produces compost teas, which is kind of like the same idea that Elaine Ingham is sharing with farmers about using compost teas. This is literally kind of like a probiotic for your grass, giving the soil microbes to the grass so that they can take up the nutrients from that soil a whole lot better. You're going to have healthier grass. Overseeding your grass is something you want to do every year if you're going to have a lawn. I don't have a lawn at all in the front yard, and I feel like I can go away for a couple of weeks and leave my yard, and I don't worry about someone having to look after it. It looks after itself very well.
So my dad was right on his homestead farm in Peace River to use clover and brome as his mix for hay. Oh, yeah, that would be a very wise. A lot of the old ideas are coming back, really, and there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't work well with the system we're currently in. We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey when we return.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineered gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. Sheryl, what's the latest on the lawsuit against Monsanto in California?
Well, the lawsuit was upheld. They did reduce the punitive damages by quite a bit, but it's good that the lawsuit is still been upheld. Of course, Bayer is going to appeal it yet again. We can expect that they will continue to appeal that. So I sort of feel for this family, and that this man probably has a very short period of time to live, and that he may never receive the money to support him and his family and his health issues. But and eventually maybe, it will be repealed, because as we move up into the court system, it depends on, of course, the judge that's residing over that case. And so it could change in the future. But as it is now, there's now another 9,000 plaintiffs to follow, which tells us a lot. There's an interesting study that just came out recently that showed that people who eat organic reduce. This is quite a large study. I think there was something like 8,700 people in this study, and they showed that cancer rates were reduced by a significant factor if people were consuming organics. So there's quite a bit of more evidence coming out just about every other day that the cancer is certainly linked to exposure of this pesticide and many pesticides as well that we're exposed to on a daily basis if we're consuming conventional food.
Can you get rid of contamination by just washing your fruit and vegetables?
Well, unfortunately, no. You'll reduce some of that, the residues that are on the outside of your food. But today, a lot of pesticides are systemic and are within our food. Some of them are even designed within the genome of the plant. So the plant itself is almost producing a pesticide. We might not be consuming those. That would be mostly your genetically engineered corn that's fed to livestock. But at the same time, neonics are another pesticide that's coated on the seeds of plants where the plant is expressing this pesticide 24/7. So there's a lot of pesticides now that get inside the produce and can't be washed off. There's a group called the Environmental Working Group that does assessment of foods and residues of pesticides on those foods. And they pick kind of like the dirty dozen, they call them, the top 12 plants that have, or crops that have the highest numbers of pesticide residues on them. So if people are trying to reduce their exposure, this is one way of kind of, if you can't afford to buy all your food organically, you can kind of focus on the worst of the worst kind of thing. And I would highly recommend that, because you're going to probably reduce your risk to cancer and a number of diseases.
Can you, off the top of your head, recall any of the particular dirty dozen?
Well, I recall, I don't know if it was Environmental Working Group or whether it was the Pesticide Action Network for North America. It was one of the two that showed celery can have up to 48 pesticide residues. And celery seems so innocent when you look at it. But, if you're growing it in your garden, you kind of realize that you might want to put a cover over it to prevent insects getting at it. And there's other things you can do as well. But obviously, celery gets quite a lot of pesticides sprayed on it. If it can have up to 48, it probably doesn't have 48, but it's going to have more than other things. I mean, strawberries are another one, but and also some of your fruits like strawberries are quite porous. You look at a strawberry, it's quite porous, so you can expect that some of that is going to get into the fruit, not just something that you can just simply wash off. And then some of them are kind of surprising, like potatoes. We don't think of potatoes being because it's a root vegetable. We don't think of it having a lot of pesticides, but that's one of the things that's on the dirty dozen, if I recall. At least it's in one of the, top few things on there. And even things like spinach. Spinach is widely available organically now in a lot of stores, just about everywhere. So, this is one way you can definitely reduce your exposure, and I highly recommend it. Trying to grow it in your own backyard is the best way, or getting involved with a community garden is another way you can kind of save some money if you're wanting to grow some yourself.
We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp, MGI and the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected several high-grade gold intersections, including 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. Additional drill targets on the LH property have been identified by a 2018 drone airborne magnetic survey to further evaluate a pyrrhotite-enriched gold-bearing system. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. Sheryl, should people be worried about chemicals seeping into their drinking water?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, worldwide and across Canada, there's many places where people are having to drink bottled water because they can't consume their own water. Every single county in this province has serious water contamination somewhere within that county. It could be, it might not be agricultural contaminants. It could be coming from fracking and things like that, or other oil and gas contaminants, or other industries, for example. But certainly agricultural pesticides persist for a very long time, certainly much longer than we're led to believe. With glyphosate, the half-life can be relatively short, or even there's some evidence that can persist for decades. That's exactly how one of the lawsuits against Monsanto was won, on that fact that glyphosate can persist. And I've talked to scientists in Alberta who've said that. So if it can persist, and there are government, I don't know if I'd call them studies, but a collection of evidence for this province that shows very high risk to water contamination, especially in the southern half of this province. So one of them also being neonicotinoids. Dr. Christy Morrissey from the University of Saskatoon has looked at that and found that neonics were in the water in the spring before planting. So this is from the previous year. And I just had someone send me some lab results of a woman from northern Alberta that showed she had the breakdown products of DDT in her blood at very, very high levels. Well, DDT was banned in the 70s, early 70s in Canada. This woman just had these results done this year. This is just one example of a persistence. We know that DDT is very persistent, but some of these other pesticides are beginning to show that they can also be very persistent. And then the breakdown products are sometimes as bad or worse than the original ingredient. We don't even assess that when we register pesticides. We don't worry about breakdown products so much in a lot of pesticides. So this stuff is not really going away. We don't see it. We don't think about it, but it can be there. And if your municipality is not testing your water at very opportune times when you would expect it, like I would not expect to see a lot of pesticides in our water in October and November, but so if that's when your municipality is testing your water, you're probably not going to find it.
Do you think that they deliberately test at low periods?
I don't know. I think a lot of people just don't know. I don't think a lot of people know this. And I don't think that a lot of people even realize that we don't really have water standards. We have water guidelines for Canada. Of course, every province and municipality can have their own standards, but we have guidelines, which are different than standards. Guidelines are kind of like, we would like you to stay at this level in your water, but if you don't, there's no legal consequences for that. So some of our guidelines don't meet what the World Health Organization recommends. So if your municipality in your province, like for example in Alberta, were required to test the water twice, well, maybe you test your water in June or July, but you could miss something because when the rain comes, that's when you're going to have higher levels of this running into your water system than if it's been very dry and there's maybe not been a lot of spraying going on. If you're testing in February, for example, you're not going to see pesticide residues probably in your water at all. So the questions people don't think to ask is, when is our water being tested? What's being looked for? What are the sensitivities of the tests that are being done, etc.? We don't even consider this. We just think our water looks good, smells fine, it must be okay. We don't think about this the same way that maybe Europeans do. Maybe because of the population density, this has been something that's been on their mind for longer. We kind of assume our water is clean in Canada, but that's actually not the case for a lot of people.
Well, take a look at how many Aboriginal communities still have to boil water.
Yes, or even boiling water will not address, a chemical contamination. If you have mercury in your water, what good is boiling your water going to do? It's only going to take care of pathogens like bacteria, etc. in your water. It won't take care of any of the other contaminants in your water. You'll have to bring water in. And that has been the way for a lot of people in Canada, especially Indigenous people. And we don't live in a third world country, but some people are living in third world-like conditions, which is just appalling. And that could happen really anywhere if you're dependent on groundwater. And eventually, even if you are, your water seems clean and good and everything, don't take it for granted. It's something that, even if you live in an area that's a ways away from a forest, for example, that's being sprayed, and we spray most of our forests where we harvest spruce and pine, etc., that gets into the water. Water moves. Water doesn't know boundaries. It doesn't know, I just stay out of Alberta or stay out of Saskatchewan or, it's going to move. So, one community does one thing and it goes downstream. And so we really can't think so narrowly about our water systems. We have to think them more broadly. Even in rain, we're seeing pesticides in rain. So, it goes in the rain moves, rain somewhere else, and you've got water contamination.
Sheryl, where can people go to find out more information about this?
Well, our website is sadly outdated. We do have we have three Facebook pages right now, and it will be in the works that we will have a Canadian page down the road. So our Facebook page is Pesticide Free Edmonton, Pesticide Free Alberta. And we're starting up a Canadian group, but that's going to be in the works for a while. So you can contact us there if you have questions. It's hard to find all this information in one place. There's government sources, some organizations like the David Suzuki Foundation, the Pesticide Action Network for North America, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, and so there's a lot of different organizations you can get this information from. Eco-Justice is also another one. They have been in lawsuits with our Pest Management Regulatory Agency that falls under Health Canada, in that we have pesticides on the market that are actually unlawfully registered. They never had the required science submitted, for example. So we kind of take for granted that even the pesticides that are out there are properly assessed, but that's actually not the case at all.
Sheryl, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
My guest has been Sheryl McCumsey, founder of PesticideFreeAlberta.org. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for our guests or for Sheryl, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.